Hi everyone, this is Jenny from Pisgah Arboretum, and today we're going to go on a walk on this trail right back here, which is the Zigzag Trail. And it's aptly named because it zigs and it zags up the slope of the hill that we're next to. So let's go and see what we can find today out there. Right here we have a little animal friend.
Look, it's a Pacific sideband snail. Here it is on the grass where I found it. And you can see its tentacles. So the two up on the top are its eyes, that's how it sees. And they have two more tentacles down at the bottom, and that's how it smells.
Snails eat mosses, lichens, mushrooms. Because they have slime, they can climb up the side of trees. So I found this one on the ground, but I often find them up on top of trees eating moss and little plants and things on the side of the tree. If you look at it, you can try to take a guess if it's a boy or a girl snail. And whatever you say, you're right, because they're hermaphrodites. That means they're both boys and girls at the same time. But there's a lot of small animals in the world that are hermaphrodites, so every snail can lay eggs and have babies. All right, we're going to put this one back in the grass so it can keep looking for food. Thanks, snail. This lovely tree behind me is a big leaf maple tree. They're aptly named because they have very large leaves. They can be as big as your head. This is actually a pretty small leaf for a big leaf maple. And they also have those cool seeds that are like little helicopters that twirl in the air. Let's see if we can find one left over from last year for you. So here's one right here. And you can see it's got this papery wing on it, and then the seed is right in here. And the wing is what lets it fly through the air. So you can throw them up, and they spin down. That probably was so fast you couldn't see it. They're quite quick. Anyway, really cool seeds, really fun to play with. So this is the first big Douglas fir tree on the trail. Douglas fir trees are our state trees here in Oregon, and they are used for so many things. We use them for building materials, for making paper, for bark chips and wood chips. There's a lot of things that we use every day in our daily lives that we don't even think about, and a lot of them came from trees like this one behind me.
Here's a robin foraging along the zigzag trail looking for little bugs and berries and things to eat.
Here are two cool things that I want to show you. One is this mound of dirt right here next to the trail. It's all loose. What do you think might have made this mound of dirt? It was probably a mole. They like to make tunnels in the forest floor looking for insects to eat. So I'm going to guess this was a mole right here. And when they're making their tunnels, there's dirt that they're trying to move out of the way, so they push the dirt up onto the surface because that's dirt that they don't want in their tunnel anymore.
Here's what a mole actually looks like. So the kinds of moles that we have here are Townsend moles. And you can see those awesome claws that it has, that it uses for all of that digging that it does underground. And you can see its little nose. Moles have a really great sense of smell. But if you look, it's really hard to see its eyes. And that's because they spend most of their time under the ground, where it's dark. So they don't see very well because they don't really need to see that well. What they do use is their sense of smell and their sense of touch. which is why it has all of those little whiskers on the sides of its face so that it can feel things as it moves through its underground tunnels.
The other cool thing that's right here is this plant. This plant has leaves that are kind of shaped like arrows, and it is called Pathfinder. And the reason it's called Pathfinder is because on the bottom of the leaf, it is bright white. So as animals and people walk along the forest floor, they sometimes brush up to this plant and break the leaf a little bit, and the leaf points the direction that the animal or person went. I'm sitting here at the base of one of the biggest Douglas fir trees here on the Zigzag Trail, and I thought I would tell you a story about Douglas fir trees and their cones. So, a long time ago, there was a little mouse in the forest, and she had just had babies. And I don't know if you've ever seen mouse babies before, but when they're first born, they're tiny, they don't have any fur, so they're kind of all wrinkly and pink, and they can't really move. So a big fire was coming through the forest, and the mouse was down at the base of a big tree like this one, and she was saying, "Oh, my babies, how will I save my babies?" Because all of the animals were running away from the fire, and she couldn't take her babies with her. She heard a voice from above her, and the voice said, "Hey, mouse, I might be able to help." She looked around. She couldn't figure out where the noise or the sound had come from. He said, "Up here." She looked up, and it was the tree talking to her. And the tree said, "Hey, my name's Douglas, and I might be able to help you." And she, the mouse, said, "Well, how can you help me? You're a tree. You can't run from the fire. You're going to get burned up as soon as it comes." And the tree, Douglas, said, "Well, look at my thick bark with all these awesome grooves. My bark will protect me from the fire. It's a low fire. It won't get up until my top where my needles are, so I'm not worried. If you could bring your babies up to the top of my branches, you can leave them on a branch and I'll protect them." And she said, "Well, no, I don't want to take them up there. You have needles. It's going to be all pokey. You're going to poke the babies." And Douglas said, "No, no, no, no. I am a friendly fir. My needles are not pokey. They are rounded and very soft. They look like this. They've got rounded tips, not pokey." So she said, "Well, I suppose I could try climbing up with them, but when I get up there, they're going to fall off the branch." He said, "I got a solution for that too." Douglas said, "Hey, bring them and you can tuck them into my cone and I'll protect them that way." So she did it. She grabbed them one at a time like a cat in her mouth, and she climbed up to the tippy top of the tree and found a cone and shoved the babies into the cone. But they didn't quite fit, so their little feet and tails stuck out of the cone. So she ran away from the fire, and then after it went through, she came back, and Douglas, the fir tree, had been right. His bark had protected him, and he was fine. And she asked right away, "Douglas, how are my babies?" And Douglas said, "They're fine. I took care of them for you." So then she was able to get her babies and bring them back down to the ground. And to commemorate how nice the Douglas fir tree was for protecting the mouse babies, now all the cones of the Douglas fir tree always have the little mouse behinds sticking out of them, the little feet and the little tails. So if you find a cone like this, you know a Douglas fir tree is nearby.
And down at the bottom, we see all of these holes. What do you think might have made those holes in the tree? You're right, a woodpecker, like this pileated woodpecker, looking for bugs, especially ants, living in the tree. A little ways past the big Douglas fir tree, we run into this beautiful old snag. So a snag is a tree that has died but is still standing upright in the forest. And this snag is a great one because there are a lot of really interesting things happening on it. So look towards the bottom and you can see these white things along the side on the wood. Those are a fungus. You can see them on the side of this picture. They're called oak mazegill. And oak mazegill grows on dead oak trees. So this snag was once an oak tree. And it's called oak mazegill because it's a shelf fungus, and on the bottom part of the shelf of the fungus, there are little squiggle lines all over, and they kind of look like a maze. The other thing that's interesting on this picture is all of these funny little lines. Can you see those on the wood? What do you think might have made all of those lines? If you guessed a raccoon, you are very smart because it was from a raccoon climbing up and down the snag. Those are the claw marks of the raccoon. A raccoon just like this one here. There used to be a raccoon that would sleep up in the top of the snag. So it would climb up from the bottom and go into one of those little ledges up at the top and sleep there during the day.
So there are a lot of really cool things happening with this old snag. One, you see tons and tons of woodpecker holes, little ones, probably sapsuckers and other woodpeckers too. But you can see the reason why there are so many. This tree is covered in ants. So let's get a little closer and see if we can see them.
Look, they're everywhere. So when you first come up to the snag, you don't even see them. But when you get close, you realize the ants are all over the tree. No wonder woodpeckers love it. I lifted up a piece of bark on the forest floor and I found this yellow spotted millipede. They're a native millipede. They're kind of like worms. They eat, the dead parts of plants that fall on the forest floor. And they have these yellow spots that show that they're poisonous. So they can spray out a cyanide spray that smells like almonds to make animals leave them alone.
This is the end of our walk for today. Thank you so much for coming with me along the Zigzag Trail. I hope you learned a little bit more about nature, and I hope that you come out sometime with your family to come on the trail yourself and see what cool critters and plants you can find when you're out on your own. Bye!